Good afternoon. The October 13th, 2025 meeting of Faculty Senate will come to order. The minutes of the September 8th meeting are attached to today's agenda for review and approval. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. First up for the meeting is my report. Over the last month, Faculty Senate leadership has continued to work on a variety of faculty concerns through meetings with administrators and university committees. Thank you to all of you who serve on the committees with us. This has included discussions of research processes, SPOT, the new strategic plan, and recruitment and enrollment, among other matters. Personally, last Monday, I took part in a shared governance event at Marshall University that featured many people who work at Marshall from a variety of roles, academic, athletics, etc., including President Smith. And in 2 weeks, I'll be representing you all at a meeting of the Faculty Senate leaders from the Big 12 Conference. I just bring this up because I think it's important to realize that behind the scenes, we are trying to all learn from each other and trying to make kind of shared governments work in higher education, in state, out of state, across the board, all those kinds of things. I would remind senators to please reach out to and communicate with your constituents so that we better understand faculty concerns and can address them when possible in a timely manner. Volunteers are needed for the University Promotion and Tenure Advisory Panel. Volunteers must not have reviewed faculty at either the department or college level, and volunteers must not be up for promotion. Otherwise, feel free and you are encouraged to volunteer. I think we're going to need about 20 people across the totality of the campuses. That concludes my report. And sure, if you are going to volunteer, do talk to Chris Staples in the Provost office. Are there any questions for me? Okay, hearing none, we will now move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is used to handle routine and non-controversial business, allowing us to approve multiple items with one vote. Today's consent agenda includes Annexes 1, 2, and 3 from the Curriculum Committee, listing approved courses and program proposals. Annex 4 from the Committee on Committees, showing updates to committee rosters, including several chair-elect appointments. Are there any requested changes to the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to the regular reports. First up is a Curriculum Committee report from Kate Johnson.
Thank you. The Curriculum Committee did not have any further business beyond the 3 reports in the consent agenda. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions for Kate? All right, thank you, Kate. Next up is the General Education Foundations Committee report from Cody Hood.
Scott, so we have a for information document you can find in Annex 6. It is an update actually from the Honors College that we worked collaboratively with them over the summer to make updates to the Honors Foundation program proposal. Primarily the revisions are twofold. First, it updates the document and the process for applicants to make sure that any of their Jeff-related comments for their proposed courses align with the updated Jeff expectations and learning outcomes. It also shifts the Jeff committee into an advisory role instead of a for information role, so we can continue playing an active process and ensuring that those students serve, or those courses serve our students to the best of their ability. I would also like to take the opportunity to bring to everyone's attention the email that was sent out earlier this morning from the Honors College for the fellows for this year to begin applying. So if you have any sort of interest in this program, it's a great opportunity to showcase what our university has to offer in less traditional sense in terms of the courses that can be presented. So please take advantage of that if you at all feel like it's a good opportunity for you to share your knowledge with our students. And that's the end of my report.
Any questions for Cody? All right, thank you, Cody. Next up is the Teaching and Assessment Committee report from Ashley Sowers.
Taco had our second meeting of the semester last Friday. Really nothing crazy new and exciting yet, but be on the lookout for some emails. If you are teaching a course that started this second or the last 8 weeks of the semester, the early semester course feedback tool is still open for you to edit. And then we all have the ability until November 23rd to modify our spot questions. So we'll be sending more emails out about that.
Are there any questions for Ashley? Okay, thank you. Next up are two reports from Leslie Cottrell, a report from the Committee on Committees and her report as faculty representative to the Board of Governors.
All right. So we've already covered the Committee on Committees Annex report. Just as a quick review, a lot of work was put into find chair-elect. So I appreciate everyone who took the leap of faith for leadership. We love it. And then we had two larger committees or outstanding committees that we were continuing to fill. Those were the libraries and research committees. So that's why you're seeing those here. And so thank you for approving those, but I will answer any questions that someone has about the COC or our committee.
Any questions?
Okay. So for the BOG, we had the last BOG meeting was right after our last Senate meeting. So I think we met the 9th. So the BOG met the 11th and 12th. And at that time, we met Foz, which everyone had a lot of questions. We were all excited about enrollment, similar to in here. I'm very happy to have him here. Thanks to everyone's work here, we were able to approve online masters in cybersecurity and some other programs like media studies at Potomac State from our colleagues on our other campuses. Facilities, there's been some renovations that went through for approval. So Jackson's Mill for extension. And then the naming of the practice field for the Pride also was in that list. So some good advancements. We switched gears then and talked about athletic support. And many of you all might have seen the resolution that was posted. So the BOG had approved a resolution that was basically in support of athletics, knowing that NIL and the current state of the state of athletics is pretty competitive, and we need to do certain things to stay up front. So that resolution simply said, we understand what's involved. It's going to be on our dashboard, and we're here for you, for our colleagues in athletics. You've seen some things about where we stand on that is the February meeting. We'll have some data. And that data will include financial and operational plans so that we can say, well, how might our support of athletics be fiscally defined? So nothing's been approved. Nothing was approved in terms of the specifics for athletics and how the academic side might support that, but more on that in February. Okay. I will balance that, as President Benson mentioned, AAU. So when there's a discussion about athletics, there's a similar discussion, and he noted the AAU at that same meeting. And similar to here, we're talking about what is that, what might we need to do to get to that aspiration. And so there's a nice balance there in the meetings between different aspects of the university's goal. And then in terms of our role, I mean, you've heard, we talked a lot about metrics from faculty perspectives, the strategic plan from faculty perspectives, how that might look. You've already seen that start to come out and play out. There's going to be other phases in terms of the enablers that President Benson mentioned. You know, how do we get there? You all are how we get there, right? Faculty is part of how we get there. And so we'll have input on that piece. So, and that was in terms of the public meeting. Does anyone have any questions on those parts?
Hey, Leslie, Joe Jones, College of Creative Arts and Media. Was there any talk of the Washington Center for Civic Engagement and Western Civilization, any of that talk?
No.
No?
There was not.
Okay.
And so we're still kind of wanting to get more information.
Great, thanks.
Welcome.
Any other questions for Leslie? Okay, thank you, Leslie. Next on the agenda is the report from faculty representative of state government, Jason Gross.
Thank you, Scott. Since the last meeting, I've been in correspondence with the other members. So I'm the representative to the statewide advisory council on faculty. So every higher education institution and community technical college has a representative on that. And we're setting the agenda for the annual retreat that involves members from the Higher Education Policy Commission at that. It's held on November 7th and 8th. If you have something that you think would be beneficial, and again, kind of coming off of Scott talking about learning from other institutions, beneficial to add to the agenda for that meeting. There's a lot of ideas circulating amongst the listserv of representatives, and I'd be happy to suggest your input for the discussion. Also, I want to thank Dan Kimball. Dan Kimball is our director for state government relations. He's going to be at West Virginia University. He's going to come and be part of that agenda to help provide a legislative update overall to that body. It's on the day 7th and 8th is the day of a board of governors meeting and then a home football game. So we're trying to see if we can get some members of the legislature to maybe come, but it's a tough calendar thing. But that's my update. If you have any agenda items you'd like to add, let me know.
Any questions for Jason? Well, we're moving with alacrity. Thank you, Jason. Okay, now moving on to the guest reports. Next up is a report on building community and academic departments from Student Government Association President Colin Street. Oh, come on.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Colin Street. I'm a junior here at WVU, majoring in political science and environmental energy resources management, and I am the president of our Student Government Association. We've been pursuing this batch initiative, which is building academic communities and homes. And I'm just here to present it to you guys and ask for your support in working with us to ensure that this can get off the ground. So a little bit of background about me. I'm a Morgantown native. I graduated from Morgantown High School in 2023. And I was super involved in high school like I am here in college. One thing I noticed from being involved in student organizations in high school was that you could tell which organizations people really identified with based on if they wore the organization's merch. Obviously, I'm repping the SGA merch, and as the president, I am super involved with it. But it's something that really stuck with me. When you can get someone to really identify with an organization or with a department, they feel like they're in that community. And I think that's something we really need to work on here at WVU. I said I have 2 majors, but I also have a third, which is multidisciplinary studies, which puts me in a whole bunch of different departments here at the university. Between political science, the Davis College, data science, history, and rural community development, I've seen that our departments at WVU do a lot of different things. The faculty from them come from very different perspectives, and they can be set up very differently, which causes different outcomes for our students. And as we were campaigning for student body president and vice president, unfortunately, our vice president couldn't make it here today. We heard the same thing from the over 30 student organizations that we went to ask them what their #1 problem was on campus, and that was apathy. Students told us over and over again, it's impossible to get students involved on campus, and these are the student leaders. There was one student from the Supply Chain Management Club that told us verbatim, when you're trying to get students involved, it's hard to compete with the bars and High Street. And that sentiment of academic apathy plaguing our students is what Ro and I, our vice president, are trying to address as student body president and vice president. So why the batch initiative? So I don't know if any of you know what a batch is. It is that tiny house. Clearly that's not in West Virginia, since there's a palm tree. A batch is actually a small cottage in New Zealand. It's supposed to be a getaway or a retreat. And I think that's what we should strive for here at WVU, is building communities and places that people want to be at. My predecessor, Charlie Long, did a study on loneliness among WVU students and found that over half of our students here at WVU suffer from chronic loneliness, and they want this community on campus. And if there's that one, I think we have a job to build those communities within our academic departments, so we can fulfill that want among students that's rooted in academic success. So we're not only giving our students the support they need emotionally, we're setting them up for success while they're here at WVU and afterwards. So how we got here, we identified high community-based departments. Our student government has 150 members, so we have people in every college and almost every department. So we relied on that base of students to understand which community or which academic departments might have the best community practices. We also looked at retention rates because we found that departments with high community building or a high sense of community among their students have higher retention rates as well. So we interviewed two of those departments, the music therapy department and the agricultural education department, to understand the intentional practices that they make at the department level to build a stronger community among students at their departments. And we identified a couple of themes and methods, which I'll go over. First of all, cultivating student-to-student engagement. I've been in several classes here at WVU where nobody says anything on day 1 or day 2 or day 3. And then we get to the final project and no one wants to work in a group because nobody got to know each other. Obviously, this hasn't been all of my classes, but we're really missing a student-to-student engagement aspect, which is definitely, I'll admit, this is a student problem as well. Students should be taking initiative, but it's hurting the environment of a classroom as well. Some of the strategies we've heard from faculty and other departments to subvert this is having a common lounge. I know the history department has a lounge that they just opened up in Chitwood Hall that has a common space for students to study. And ultimately, those relationships between students are built in small interactions that would be fostered in a common space for a department. Also, student-to-student interaction is heavily built in department student organizations. Like I mentioned, the Supply Chain Management Club is just a club for students in that major. And there are several student organizations across the university that can be heavily tied to departments. And collaborating with those departments with faculty could be an amazing opportunity to spur some more collaboration and build that community in departments. Second is creating opportunities for informal interactions with faculty. A lot of times we hear from faculty over the past 2 years that I've been in student government is that students don't go to office hours anymore. I know we hear that from students as well. They're not sure when office hours are, but also they're just not taking the initiative to go to office hours. And what we found from the 2 departments that we interviewed is they are reimagining the way office hours exist in their departments. Instead of having a set time, they have a general open door policy that allows students to come in, have more informal interactions with their students. They also have monthly faculty student mixers, where they might have a faculty come and present about their research to students, because a lot of times students aren't aware of the research that you all are doing outside of the classroom, but it gives students the opportunity to hear what you all are doing and the ability to interact with faculty in a more kind of less intimidating, more low-key way. And the third one is inspiring students to get involved. A lot of times students don't get involved because they can't see themselves in those positions. Some of the departments we interviewed have departmental social medias run by students, which gets them involved in the first place, but highlighting the internships and other opportunities students are doing. So they're exposed to those opportunities and it reduces the barrier to get those students involved. So how can we move forward on this together? Obviously, like I said, you all are very busy. So what I can offer you in student government is capacity to plan mixers, to plan events, to work with your department chairs on implementing these practices. And we have people in student government who have volunteered their time and we've hired them through student government to work on this initiative with your department chairs. I have a QR code up there for you all to scan. So please, if you haven't already, get your phone out and scan that. It's a Google form that allows you to log the practices in your departments that you think are building a better community among your students. Like I said, we primarily just focus on music therapy and agricultural education, but what builds community in the Davis and CCAM colleges might not build community in Statler or Chambers. Ultimately, we're looking to pilot this with at least one department in every college for the next semester. And then we want to view retention rates going forward to see how this will impact our student success outcomes among our students. Like I said on that Google form as well, you can indicate to me if you think your department would be interested, and I'll reach out to you via email so we can continue to work on this and collaborate on this further. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time at your meeting. My email's up on the screen as well if you'd like to reach out to me via email, but I'm more than welcome to take any questions.
Sorry. Hey, Colin, thanks for this work. This is great work. Thank you for your time today. So my college is also trying to address this kind of an issue. One idea we had was like to have focus groups to like talk to students about what they want as far as community. I feel like a bunch of professors asking what they want isn't going to go anywhere. So is this something that like that student council could help us with, student government, like of helping us run focus groups or talking to our own students about what they want, like you guys being cooler than us?
Yeah, so I'm glad you bring that up. We actually, part of our structure is we have college senators. So I know for the Creative Arts and Media, we have 2 senators just from that college.
Roe's there, right? Too, isn't he?
Roe is a
Yeah,
CCAM major as well, yeah. He used to be the Reed College senator, but with the merger and everything, he ended up moving up to vice president. But we have college senators for every college that could help ask students where they want to be met. I know we hear a lot of we need to meet people where they are, but I don't think we ask where they'd like to be met as much. So we also have students that could help plan those events once we know whether they're focus groups or just more formal events that students have already said they want. We have students that can help plan that for your department.
Okay, and that's like an expectation that they will like respond to us, like that we can kind of, I don't want to say use senators that way, but like that our student representatives will work with us to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
of course. Any other questions? No, well, thank you so much. I'll send that link to the that was connected to the QR code to Scott so he can send it out to you guys as well. But just thank you again so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Colin. And if you don't mind, I'm going to actually say something else, not on the agenda. Colin is, of course, a member of the Board of Governors. And he is doing a fantastic job representing not just students, but all of us. So thanks. Next up is a report from the Vice President for Enrollment Management, Fabrizio Delosio. Sorry.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Come on. It's great to be here. Again, my name is Fabrizio Delosio. I like to say it's a good Irish name, but it really isn't. I am proud and honored to be the first Vice President for Enrollment Management at the university, or West Virginia University. I am now in my 4th week here, and it's been an amazing 4 weeks getting to know people, learning about some of the great work that's already happening at this university. I see my role is really helping us all align and work towards the same goals. We've got a enrollment management team that works really, really hard. But if I can bring some structure and some process to that, and then I hear the amazing work that's happening in the colleges, but sometimes I'm not sure if we all know what each other is doing. And so part of my role is to have a strategy over multiple years that takes all that into consideration, so we're all aligned. One of the things I was asked to do is share a little bit about myself and my background. So I am a first-generation student. My parents came to the United States from a province in Italy called Abruzzes. My mom had me when she was very young. And if it wasn't for education, I wouldn't be here today. And so this work is more than a job or more than just work. It's a passion, it's a commitment. And when I'm going to show you some of these numbers, I think you all agree with me. Like, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. A great institution, but what's happening in the state in terms of the demographics in the state, President Benson alluded to that earlier, but also what's happening across the country. Like, we do need to galvanize, and we need to make sure we're all aligned. Prior to coming here, I was at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville for 8 years as the Associate Vice Provost for Enrollment and the Executive Director of Undergraduate Admissions. President Benson mentioned increasing apps. We increased apps pretty significantly over that time. Probably about 18,000 in 2017. When I had left, we had about 63,000 applications coming in just for first-year students. So it can be done, but it does take a lot of work. And it's not just enrollment management, it's the entire university. So I want to talk a little bit today about kind of where we are, what we're working on, what's on my mind. And then I want to open it up to you all to hear what you think. Before I do that, does everyone know that enrollment management is its own division now? no longer part of university relations. I think that's important because this is a really important priority to the university. It's an important priority to President Benson. It's one of his 3 pillars. So I report directly to the president, leading all the departments within enrollment management, financial aid, the hub, recruitment, admissions, new student orientation, visitor center. A lot of that touches all the work you all are doing, right? So again, important that we're coordinating. It's not advancement. Any ideas? Isn't it just an arrow? All right, presentation's over. Everyone gets to go home. Thank you. What'd you do? Press the arrow? Okay, great, great. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening with demographics. So this is really important, right? As President Benson mentioned, we can't manufacture more students now. What we have is what we have. And so when you look at what's happening in terms of national projections, you can see where we are in 2015, 2014, I'm sorry, 2025. You can see that we are going to see a significant decline over the next several years. And that's nationally. And then when you want to, then the next question is, okay, Fabrizio, we see that. So where is there going to be growth? Well, there's going to be some growth in some markets, but 38 states are going to see an overall decline of high school students, high school graduates. And so those are real numbers that we need to work within, and we need to develop strategies to increase market share in some of those markets where we're going to see declines, but also look at new markets. So earlier Pennsylvania was mentioned. Pennsylvania is going to see a decline also, right? In fact, most of our feeder states are going to see declines. And if there's going to be increases, they're going to be very negligible increases. So we need to increase market share, and we need to look at new markets. In-state, same thing. And speaking of in-state, and before I do that, you can see out-of-state, where we're seeing population growth is largely in the South. And then in-state, about 18,000 graduates this past fall in high school. And you can see that line graph. The future is not positive in terms of the number of high school graduates. Doesn't even talk about college going or their ability to be successful academically, which is a whole other piece of it, right? Because as the public flagship university, we want to make sure that people know, students know, families know that there's a place for everybody in the system. However, we want to make sure we're admitting students that we know can be successful here at Morgantown. And if you're a student that needs a little bit more support and help, we've got a campus for that, right? But knowing where we stand relative to college going in the state, knowing what the college academic preparation looks like, that's kind of the hand we're dealt. And so what we need to do is we need to attract more students in state to this university. And everybody likes to compare us to other schools. And so I've heard board members, faculty and staff, counselors compare us to other schools in the state. And sure, we compete in the state for students with just about everybody. However, we're competing with the University of Maryland College Parks. We're competing with Rutgers. We're competing with Pitt. So we're competing nationally, in-state, and regionally. And so we need to make sure that we step up our game. And so, starting day one of week 4, what I've been working on is thinking through how we organize our team in enrollment management to meet our goals. So really focusing on people and culture. Make sure that our staff is innovative, that we have stable staffing, that we're looking at ways to improve growth, bringing staff that are remote but need to be here, that service students, Our recruiters, they should be remote, right? They're in the field working with students. The students that are here or staff that are here or need to be here to work with current students, or when a student comes to visit, we need to make sure that they're here and we're working hybrid and we've got the right level of staffing. How do we streamline our processes? How are we making sure we're working collaboratively? So using this audience as an example. So during the break, at least 5 or 6 people came up to me and say, hey, we do this in our college and we do this and we bring in students on these bus trips. Again, I don't know because I'm fairly new and I'm kind of learning it all. I don't think we know in enrollment management that a lot of these bus trips are happening at the college level, right? And man, think about the power. You're investing resources. If we knew they were here, we could enter them in our system. They would get part of our communication. They would get digital ads. They would get mailings. They would get email. We would recruit them starting in 8th grade, potentially, if you're having 8th graders here. So if we can think about all the things that are already happening and aligning it to our work and make sure we're in lockstep, we will be much more successful. President Benson has gone on a roadshow. He's talked about the strategic plan. Well, we need to build an enrollment plan that aligns with that strategic plan, that looks at targets multiple years out. Again, some ability to flex and change, but we shouldn't be doing this every single year. It's like a whole new thing. It needs to be a long-term plan with feedback and input from all of you and other stakeholders across campus and the other campuses to assess where we want to go, how we're going to get there, and what the priorities are. And then the way to do it is really leveraging technology and data. I'm a big fan. If you don't have data and you're making a decision, you're basing it on your opinion. You're not basing it on what matters. Data is king. And so we will be building out a data analytics unit within enrollment management so we can assess what markets do we need to put recruiters in, what markets do we maybe need to move recruiters out of, how do we leverage or maximize our financial aid budget, right? Because that's a set amount of money. We need to make sure we're leveraging in a way that meets the strategic plan and the enrollment goals. And so leveraging data in a way that allows us to work smarter, not harder, and make strategic decisions is key, especially when we're seeing a decline in college graduation rates. And so this is just kind of a laundry list of things that we're looking at as we drive impact. I'm not going to read everything on the page, but enrollment diversification, I mentioned financial aid strategy. We want to enhance our service, hence bringing folks back that are focused on interacting with prospective students when they're on campus or current students. Win West Virginia, don't tell President Benson I said this, but he stole that from me. That's my little sayings. I'm going to put a trademark on it. Win West Virginia, like it's really important. And what does Win West Virginia mean? We need to figure that out together, right? Like, do we want to be like Marshall? I would say probably not. Marshall's a fine institution. We're the R1 flagship. So what does it look like to WVU to win West Virginia? Cost and affordability, those are key concerns on people's minds, especially parents, as they're funding their son or daughter or daughters and sons' educations. We want to make sure we provide exceptional value. Our academic programs, where you all play a huge role. Like our academic programs, are they speaking to today's students, right? Is the title what they understand? Is it jazzy? Does it align with their understanding of what's needed in the workforce? Does it include technology and data? I mentioned data analytics. I mentioned tech optimization, marketing and brand impact. So we've got a brand at the university. We can shape that brand over time, one way or the other. We can decide that. But it's important that when people think of WVU, they think of high quality, they think of experiential learning, they think of value, right? All those things. And then this kind of aligns with the data, market segmentation and assessment. Again, what markets do we want to be in? How do we communicate? Talk to them all the same? Or do we leverage the data to say, this student in this market tends to be interested in this, this, and this? So let's talk to them about those three things, not everything else, because we're a large university. we offer so much. If we try to dump all the things that we do on a student, 80% of it might be something they really don't care about. And there are data tools we can use to customize that communication. So then they feel like we're speaking to them, not to the 80,000 students in our prospect system. So this is not planned. President Benson mentioned Henry Ford. I did not know he was going to mention Henry Ford. This quote I always aspire to in terms of the work. Coming together is the beginning. Staying together is progress. And working together is success. Working together is success. We can accomplish a lot more working together than working in our silos. And we own some of that too. Over the years, I'm sure there's opportunities that we've missed engaging with colleges. And so what I want to talk a little bit about, and this is just the beginning of it, how do we partner? So it's important that we are collaborative and that this is a campus-wide effort. And so we need to align our messaging and marketing. So when someone comes to visit campus and they come through our visitor center and they go through an info session, they go on a tour, and they have, I hope, an amazing experience. And then when they go to a college meeting to meet with an advisor or a faculty member, the messaging should be somewhat similar, right? They shouldn't feel like they're in a very different university, right? We're all WVU. So how does that experience align with the experience that they're getting when they're coming to visit through the admissions office? Clarifying roles and responsibilities. Someone mentioned this earlier today. Hey, you need to do research. You all are teaching. Are you recruiters? The answer is yes. However, what does recruitment look like? Doesn't mean you have to be visiting every school in the state. Like, we've got that. But when a student comes to visit campus, what's your role then, right? What's your role once we admit students? At a certain point, students are done talking to us, right? They want to talk to you. They want to talk to the faculty that are teaching their classes. They want to talk to advisors. That's where you come in terms of yielding students. And so I feel like there's, and I'm not saying it's wrong, there's different people doing lots of things, when in reality, we can probably be much more efficient with your time and with our time if we all aligned and we're on the same page. Who's doing what when? And that's part of that alignment, communication, collaboration. And again, unified campus efforts. We need to have a cohesive approach. When students come to visit, we want to know they're here. If they come on a bus trip for you all, or if you sponsor students, because we can recruit them and we can take what you're already doing and add additional value, and vice versa. There's things we're doing that you can add value. So that's all I've got. I'm happy to take questions. I just want to say and underscore something again that was mentioned earlier. People, I can't remember the exact terminology that was used. I'll put it in my words. People make the place. And again, I've only been here 3 weeks, but I sensed it when I interviewed. I sensed it during the conversations I had through that process. And the people here are extraordinary. We just need to tell our story. We need to work together, and we need to make sure that our prospective students see this place, and they will walk away very impressed. So thank you so much. Go Mountaineers.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation. My name is Scott Fleming. I'm with the Chambers College. I've looked at the numbers, and my belief is that we've probably priced ourselves out of the out-of-state market. And I've mentioned this before. I've heard whispers of applying metro rates. I think this group would probably be curious about where we are with that. Within the state, you know, we've got between 17 and 18,000. For each graduating class within West Virginia, we get slightly less than 17.5% of those students to come here. I'm curious about what we can do to try to up that to 18 or 19%. So it's a multifaceted approach. What can we do in state and what can we do out of state? And then I toss this out. Now, I've been to a few high schools to help try to recruit, and I'm willing to go to any high school within the state to try to do that. I've found that being a barker at a table for career day is less effective than if you can get into the high school's curriculum. We would certainly appreciate any help that you could provide to help us get into these high schools. Because if you get in and you befriend the teachers, they recruit for you. And if you're part of that curriculum, then those students almost become indoctrinated into, oh, I'm part of WVU because they helped provide, they were a guest lecturer or they provided some materials for us. So I'd ask that maybe you consider that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. So how do we increase our market share in state? A couple things. We need to bring more educators here on campus. And so one of the things that we've done in my previous institution that we'd like to do this here at WVU is have a counselor fly-in where we sponsor 20 counselors in the fall-ish, 20 counselors in the spring, where they come to campus for 2.5 days. The impact and the influence a school counselor has on students is extraordinary. They come see this place. They meet the people in this place. They meet with different departments. We show them what Morgantown has to offer as a place. We go to Cooper's Rock. We do all those things, right? So they can see and imagine their students here. When they go back to their schools, they will share what their experience has been. They will share that with parents. And we can do that in state and out of state. It doesn't matter. In terms of costs, so I haven't gotten that far yet. When I look at the data in state, we are very affordable in state. I think it's like 60% or something get financial aid in state, if I remember correctly, or 42%, something like that. Out of state, when you look at our peers who we're competing against, we are actually a lower price point for the most part. However, I'm not sure if our brand warrants, if the perception is it's worth the extra cost. So when we had Academic Common Market, I believe years ago, I think we did much better out of state than we have in the last couple of years. I think those are things we need to do. So, right, and again, remember what I said earlier? You don't have data, you just have an opinion. We're going to do a price elasticity study this year to assess where do we stand in terms of perception among high school students and their parents, both in state and out of state. So then we can use for next cycle, we think about scholarships, how we need to, and pricing, how we need to manage that. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Joy Hutchinson with the College of Applied Human Sciences and School of Education and Counseling. And I teach in a graduate program. And in our circles and associations, we've been talking about the potential loss of undergraduate admissions for a few years now. But we've also seen that with that, we're getting increases in graduate school applications because people changing careers midlife and even just different ideas of that. My program is struggling right now, not because of applications, but because we don't have the faculty with our accrediting body that limits our student-faculty ratio. So is there going to be ways to look at that to kind of fast track some of our lost lines from retirement for my program, but also just marketing to non-traditional students?
Sure. Is your program online or in person? Or
We
combo?
have both.
Both. So we are working, Chad and his group, on some online marketing to get the word out because we feel like that's an opportunity to have a little bit of a more immediate impact on enrollment. In terms of lines and faculty, I think that all needs to be part of the conversation. In day one of week 4, I haven't gotten there. I think that's a conversation with the provost and with others in the university of where we think we should invest because there's there's the promise of increased enrollment, right? There's a return on investment. How long does that return on investment take to get back to the university? And then where do we fund that from?
Hi, Lisa Costello, School of Medicine. What kind of data analysis is being performed to project what ramifications will come from the provisions in HR 1, particularly on spending cap and how that may impact enrollment from the School of Medicine, which I represent? In-state tuition is about $37,000 a year, whereas non-resident tuition is about $74,000 a year. So just there alone, if you're relying upon loans, that is no longer really going to be possible July 1, 2026. So what type of projection is the office doing to do that, and then coordinating to try to offset some of that so that we continue to make these programs attractable? And that's just the School of Medicine example, but I think other grad programs may feel the pain on that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Our director of financial aid and some of the financial aid team right now are at a conference learning more about the nuances of the big, beautiful bill and the impact on graduate programs. So we know there's an impact. In terms of how we manage through that, we're still sorting through it. We're talking to other schools to assess how they're managing through it. We're not where we want to be yet, but we're going to get there. And I think that's something we need to look very closely at, because as someone mentioned earlier, I think graduate is an opportunity for us to really shore up some of our enrollment numbers. There.
Hi, Mandy Wyrick. I'm with the School of Social Work in Everly College. So in the School of Social Work, we have undergrad, graduate. It's a professional program. We have online, on campus, full and part-time options. So we have a pretty wide variety to hook students. We have been stripped down so bare in terms of resources, human resources, but yet we have, as administrators, have taken on duties as being marketers. We're trying to figure out how to run social media campaigns ourselves to try to recruit students. We're trying to divvy up time to do online information sessions and to go places to recruit students, which is fine, but that is on top of all of our duties. And then in the meantime, because of academic transformation and budget cuts, our online graduate courses are so overfilled, it's almost unmanageable how big the classes are in the online. So we're kind of in this loop of like, we could recruit more, but we don't have the capacity to teach the ones that we recruit. And we've kind of, at the beginning of our online MSW program, we had all these folks from out west that were applying. And now that we're not really kind of reaching them, I guess, digitally, we're not getting the same number applying to our program. So we're just kind of in this cycle of, here we are trying to stack onto our workload to try to be marketing directors because we have such limited resources. So any help would be appreciated with that. And then, we can meet the need if we can get the help to recruit.
Okay. Yeah, so we really need to do a deep dive on where we're at currently with demand in these programs and assess what resources there might be to help support the work that's happening in the college. Academic transformation kind of put us a little behind, right? And now we need to get to the point where we're in a place to leverage things. In terms of priorities and things, I think that's a conversation that I'm happy to be part of, but I also know that the provost's office, the president's office, there's other folks that need to be part of where do we want to place our scarce resources in terms of creating opportunities to support enrollment growth.
I'm Daniel Brewster in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology in the Eberly College of Arts and Sciences. A question about just like the recruiting efforts, like our college recruiters are fantastic, but I think to my knowledge, there's one, and the Eberly College is a giant college, right? And the regional recruiters, like I assume they do a good job, but like I asked recently, like, what do they know about our programs? Like, I've been here 22 years. They've never once met with us. Like, they've never once asked, like, what we do, what our department is. Like, I have one of the largest majors in the college, and I assume in the university with criminology. Like, how do they sell criminology at the regional recruiter level? It's like the answer was like they don't, right? So like like you're talking at the beginning about the break in between these two, to enrollment management being alone. I think a lot of faculty are like thankful for that. Like we didn't understand like what got us there in the first place. But at the same time, it's like the recruiters, where are they getting their information that's going out and like recruiting? Like they can have a table like come to WVU, but it feels like for a lot of us, and I don't mean this offensively to anybody, there's like 3 to 5 programs that get sold to students at the expense of everybody else. And so how do we make it to where like the student who wants to study criminology or sociology or political science or psychology is seen the same as the ones who want to study some of the big name programs?
Okay. Yeah, so our recruitment team, we meet with your college recruiters monthly. And so there was a meeting, I think, last week. There are opportunities to make sure that your college recruiter should be talking with our recruitment staff in those meetings. And if for whatever reason a college feels like, hey, the regionals maybe don't have a full sense of everything we have to offer, like let's get our team on a Zoom with your team and let's make sure that that knowledge transfer is happening. I'm not sure how well it is or isn't. I know our recruiters are working lots of hours, weekends, traveling, and they're trying to represent all the programs. However, to represent everything we offer here equally is very challenging for any group of recruiters across the country. And I had 32 recruiters in my previous institution. Also, I think sometimes we need to think about feeding students into, as we're talking with them, we need to answer all the questions we can, and then pass the baton to your college recruiter if necessary, but also looking at the premier programs in each of your areas. And so by doing that, we're bringing students into your college. There's a baton pass, and then you can talk about the other programs you offer. So it's twofold. It's making sure that we can answer a certain level of depth of questions and be able to promote programs, but also to really work with your recruiter as the baton pass and making sure that we're getting that training. Sounds like you're saying you don't think we are.
I just don't, I think they're telling you about the programs, but I don't think that you all are getting the information like, or maybe it's not getting out. I don't know. I wrote about 800 individual personal cards to incoming students this year. Like that's an
That's awesome.
incredible,
Thank you.
incredible amount of work for someone to do,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And and these were students who somehow landed in our department, right? So like something's happening, but we were just like, I was doing this to like, make the extra effort to see, what we could do. Do I get a second question spot? Right? 2, right? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, what's the question online?
Gina Taylor.
You might be on mute. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Fabrizio. You visited us at our annual conference. I represent Extension. And I just wanted to remind you that our faculty are in every county in the entire state. We are partially funded by boards of education, and so we're very familiar with our board members in each county. We have tons of kids in our 4-H program who could possibly be college bound. And so just, keep us in mind. We can help make connections in the counties for your group.
Absolutely. So when we talk about increasing market share, that's a key strategy to doing that in state, is starting early with Extension, and getting those students to see WVU and understand what we do at an early age, get them in our mailing list so they start getting communication. We don't have an opportunity in admissions to work with eighth graders in large numbers. We just don't have the size staff. We're dealing mostly with high school students. So as we think about a plan and a strategy, we need to find out and decide how to divide and conquer and use all our resources strategically. Thanks for sharing.
Hi, Eric Horstick, Eberly Department of Biology. So thanks a lot for coming and sharing these efforts. I think it's great. I kind of first just really wanted to just again kind of reiterate a point of making sure that graduate recruitment is definitely remains part of this equation. And just to reiterate one key point with that of top quality grad students are top quality TAs, and happy grad students are happy TAs. And even though faculty are kind of, not to be dramatic, the tip of the spear of a lot of undergrad interaction and et cetera, but the grad students, the TAs that we are dependent on in a lot of programs are also going to have that much more relatable role to the students and probably just be able to make a lot better contact. So, I mean, there's multiple layers there. Not only are they numbers that can build kind of some of our components, but that other layer I think is going to be super, super important, and thinking about their happiness in that then bigger picture is also going to be important, and kind of roll it into the same question. Even though it's a different kind of comment is we did have somebody bring up the kind of impact of creating curriculum for high schools. And I'll echo that. I have experienced that. I've worked really closely with EGPC as part of a program or a large grant that had goals of working with the high schools to create curriculum. And it was a lot of effort, but from my experience, the high schools in the state are hungry for advanced curriculum. The one I'm a part of is creating a data science curriculum, and work from my lab is now part of a curriculum that was built by somebody at Morgantown High School, that right now that curriculum is at the West Virginia Department of Education for statewide implementation. And that's just one example, I think, of there is this demand. There's a lot of talent throughout the university that without then having even a recruiter running around, this curriculum with the WVU there. I think there's paths there. The connections are made to get WVU faculty or research generated curriculum worked with people, but we need these bridges and can have a recruitment impact that probably expands way beyond any one individual, way beyond any team of recruiters.
Right. One to many, right? Like
Yeah.
that content.
So, I mean, just thoughts.
Yeah. Appreciate it. And I want to underscore too, when we talk about our recruitment team in undergraduate admissions, they're primarily focused on undergraduate students, right? They don't have the expertise, nor do they have the experience to go and recruit graduate. They can talk to our programs, they can speak to them, they're part of it, but they are primarily focused on high schools. And we need to talk about how we can better support you all on the graduate side of things.
So again, Daniel Brewster, Everly College of Arts and Sciences. During President Benson's address, you noted that you all had piloted a 5 high school program. So I'm wondering if you could tell us what are those 5 high schools and how you made that choice?
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll give you the high level. So there's 5 schools in the state. We looked at schools where we've seen a drop in the number of applicants over the last couple of years, but we think we should be doing better in those schools. And we actually threw out, I think to 8 or 9 schools, only 5 said they were interested in the program. And so what they're going to come out, it's either October, I think it's October 29th, and they're going to go on a tour of campus. I think they're meeting with some colleges. We're paying for their lunch. We're providing the bus. We're going to give them some swag. And we're going to put them in our system, and we're going to track, like, do they apply, right? Do they enroll? And then we know this is going to be, I think these are high school students. I think they're 9th and 10th graders, maybe some 11th graders. And we're going to assess, like, are their rate of enrolling higher than other students that come to campus for a visit on their own. And I know based on during the break, many of you are bringing students on campus for different bus trips and things. I don't know this for certain. I would venture to guess that we don't know who those folks are in admissions. So we're not putting them in our system. We're not sending them digital communication. We're not mailing to them. We're not serving up ads. And so if you're all going to invest in those things, and by no means is it our job to say you shouldn't do that. You should, but let's work together on it to make sure we're maximizing the spend, time, energy, and resources that's happening at the college level.
Hi again, I'm Val Gritsenko from the School of Medicine, Department of Human Performance. And I'm wondering, where do you see the biggest barriers in recruiting of international students, where there's a giant pool of them out there?
I think there's huge opportunities to recruit internationally. I think the barriers are things that are sometimes out of our control, right? So when you look at the perception of studying in the USA, depending on the administration and what's happening, what people are hearing. Right now, international students in general don't feel like they're welcome to study here. And that happens, and things change over time. We need to get to the point where we're positioned when it is a good time. We've got the network, we've got the staff, we've got the relationships to turn on those pipelines. But I know many institutions that depend heavily on international recruitment. That in the last few years, they've had real challenges because the majority of their class, or 40% of their class, came from other markets out of the country, and they were so dependent on them, and they had no control in terms of adjusting and bringing those in. So the gist is we need to build a foundation. I think that's an area we can grow. We also need to work on our ranking. So for those that recruit internationally, like if you're not in the top 100, it's really difficult to get international students here. And when you look at the U.S. News and World Ranking, the report that just came out, we didn't rank all that strongly compared to our colleagues in the Big 12. And so there's some things we need to be really effective there. That doesn't mean we shouldn't start to build that infrastructure.
Follow-up question. Do you think there's a good role of partnerships with international institutions? Like there's several memorandums of understanding, recognizing each other's degrees and transfer of credit, that sort of thing could help, and online offering of courses, graduate courses.
Yeah, no, those are all things that could help, and we've done those in my previous institution. Yeah, for sure. But fundamentally, right, there's all these other things that I think we need to build out. So who's going to be doing all that, right? And we need to build a team. Right now, we have one international admissions counselor. One. So much like you all were talking about in terms of resources, that is not a place where traditionally we've invested heavily or even moderately.
Hello, Casey Kidd School of Medicine. I am a proud graduate of our institution twice over, but I'm also a proud graduate of Brooke High School. And I've been faculty here for 5 years, but nobody's ever asked me to go back to Brooke High School and talk to them about our amazing institution. And so I think there's more that we could do to leverage the strengths we have within our own faculty and staff to make those connections. And I'd love to hear more about how we could do that.
Okay. So one of the things, and so not necessarily faculty and staff, more so students, would love for our students to go back to their high schools during their breaks and talk with their peers and about their experience at the university, what they've learned, what they've gotten out of it. We've done that. I've done that at other institutions. It's worked really, really well. I think we don't know where everyone is a graduate of. And so we probably need to do an inventory to assess that. And there's some of you that I know would love to do that, and there's some that might not want to do that. And so it's really building out the process. I mentioned process earlier, to be able to take all this in and get people out into the field, into the market. And there are some folks that we know aren't going to want to do that at all, right? Some are going to want to stay back and do the internal things. I don't think we've had that opportunity. We've done that within enrollment management. Again, in day 1 of week 4. So I'm still trying to figure out like where we've been, what our practice has been. But I think we need to think about all the ideas. And that's a great idea. What do we have the ability to easily lift in a short period of time? Because there's a lot of things we can do, but we do need to prioritize some of these things.
Hi, Brian Powell, Statler College. Was curious if you could talk to what sort of follow-up enrollment management does with students who are accepted for admission but choose to not come to WVU. If there's information to be gleaned there as to why they're not coming or where they did go. If we have any information on that, that might help us better market ourselves.
Yep. So we have done an admitted student survey. So these are students, 2 groups. You've been admitted and you enroll, asking why you came. And then we've done an admitted student survey of those that have been admitted and didn't come. That's pretty standard in this line of work. I have not dug into our results yet. In general, the ones that don't come tend to always say it's financial, even if it's not financial. Like it's an easy thing to kind of put out there. I can't afford it. When in reality, there's usually something else that's driving that. It could be value proposition. It could be the program wasn't as strong. And the students that come, it's usually community. They felt like that this was a fit. They made a relationship, had a relationship with someone when they met in the department and they felt they aligned. So I have not dug in deep on that yet. Right now, a lot of my time has been just asking questions about where our recruiters recruit. We're implementing a new system, LearnerOrg, which is based on Salesforce. We're kind of going through some of that currently. So it's been really figuring out like what's first, what's second, what's third. But that data we will get into, and we will continue to do these admitted student surveys. And I would be happy to do a readout with this group on what the admitted student survey says next time we do it.
I think that'd be really interesting and useful for us to see. I do actually have a second question as
Sure.
well. Marshall, kind of being the in-state competition, is doing automatic admission for students from a number of Southern West Virginia counties who meet like 2.5 GPA. And I'm wondering if there's been any consideration of trying to do the same for WVU.
Well, in the last 3 weeks, there hasn't been. There might be in the future. I saw the article that you're referring to. Everyone has an opinion, right? My opinion is that that's not a good fit for the public flagship land-grant university in the state. We have heard from our counselors, we've heard from students, and we've heard from most parents that our admissions process is very straightforward. It's not a holistic review, or not terribly holistic. We don't require letters of recommendation. It's a pretty straightforward process. And as the flagship, and when you think about retention and graduation rates, we've seen our retention rates go up. I don't want to get in a position where we sacrifice those retention rates just to generate more admits and more enrolled to then see them exit the university. And when you look at our retention and graduation rates, they're amongst the best in the state.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Vice President Delosio. I will say, as someone who in recent years used to stand at these microphones quite often, I don't recall a time when we had this many individual senators come and ask questions, which I think kind of conveys how interested we are, and we really therefore extra appreciate your involvement today. I'm going to make an unusual ask. Is anybody in this room on the recruitment and retention committee, the student recruitment and retention committee? Will you stand up? Oh, yeah, of course you are. Miriam is the chair of this. It's entirely clear that many, many, many people in this organization, beyond those who serve on the committee, are extremely interested in this. So I would very much encourage, if you have not yet met Miriam and you have ideas, and I assume you will be fine to accept conversations and or emails, would share your ideas, because there's been like a lot of really, I think, helpful conversation today. And since we have institutionalized a committee to do our own work in this area, just thank you for the service you're doing there, and all of you all please take advantage of that committee as well as the new VP. Thank you. Okay, next up is an update on the faculty ombudsperson position from Faculty Senate Secretary Lauren Prinzo.
Right. Hi, everyone. Lauren Prinzo with Extension. So as many of you know, in May of this year, Faculty Senate established a special committee to review the ombuds position description and make some recommendations to help to get that position filled and look at the long-term sustainability of the role. So we wanted to provide you a short update today. So we did make some recommendations. Several faculty members and with support from Melissa Latimer as well met and discussed the position, learn more about the role that the faculty ombudsperson plays, explore different barriers to that role, and then made some recommendations. The memo is attached to the agenda. If you'd like to review, click on that link and review those as well. So in summary, the primary change that we recommended to the position was removing the requirement for the ombuds position to have previous experience in formal conflict resolution. So we felt that that may limit the pool of applicants significantly, and in practice, the ombudsperson is more likely to focus on identifying policies, identifying resources, help a person talk through different paths, as opposed to playing a role in a direct conflict resolution mediation type environment. So we did recommend that. And then overall along those lines, changing the wording a little bit, it was heavily worded, trending towards a kind of a counseling background, we felt. So we looked at the wording of the position description and tried to align it with what we knew to be the actual role and the practices of the person in that position. So, and that's kind of the short term. We wanted to make small recommendations, go for the low-hanging fruit, and see how we could support getting the position filled as quickly as possible so that our faculty have that resource. And then in the long run, we also started to explore some different avenues for strengthening the role, potentially through a centralized faculty ombuds office, since there's now a graduate student ombuds position as well. If you don't mind me sharing, Provost Kreider, the provost office has reposted the position, and it's available and open right now. So we hope that if you're interested, that you'll apply, share it with others who may be interested, and that we can, hopefully get that position filled. Once it is filled, that's when our committee felt we could potentially reconvene and meet with the person in that role to understand how Faculty Senate could better support them in that position. I'd be happy to take any questions. So the question is, what's the compensation? Provost Kreider, I will be happy to take a stab at this, but correct me if I'm wrong. So it is actually a 0.25 effort buyout to your college. So there is no compensation for the ombuds position. It's planned for about a 10-hour-a-week time commitment. So your department does have to agree to release that time for you to be able to do that. Yep, it's a challenge.
Yes, that was an excellent question. Thank you, Lauren.
All right, thank you.
Is there any new business? Hearing none, we're adjourned.